Hi, everyone. Good morning or good day, depending upon where you're tuning in from in the world. I have one question. Will you put in the chat if you can hear me okay? Because I'm trying to change my microphone, and of course, it's not letting me. Let me mute myself here. Okay, here we go. Can you just let me know if you can hear me all right? It's using my webcam microphones, my Yeti microphone, and I can't figure that out. But if you can hear me okay, we're just going to roll today. Oh, Deval, you're watching from Kuwait. Corey, welcome. Vikas, Chance. Oh, great, Chance. You can hear me all right. Okay, well, that's good news. So in that case, we'll just get started. Let me share my screen and give me a little bit of today because I'm a little rusty with StreamYard. So let me make sure, let me present. Just give me a second here. I'm getting there. Here's my PowerPoint. Okay. Thank you for being patient with me, guys. Okay, let's see. Present. Share screen. Here we go. All right. I think we've got it. Okay, and now if you can just confirm for me that you can see my PowerPoint and you can see me, and then we'll get started. And there's if you see me pausing, it's just because there's a 30-second delay with StreamYard, so I just want to make sure. It seems like everything is okay. Baran says the connection is lost. Okay. So if there is a problem, let me know, but otherwise, let me know that you can see your camera and you can also see myself. Mohammed, you're from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Oh, I hope to visit Saudi Arabia one day. Mohammed, everything's okay? You can see it? Okay, Chance, thank you. All right, I'm getting a lot of thumbs up. So let's start. It is Tea Time Tuesday with Nancy. And I was inspired for this particular live because something happened to me last week that hasn't happened to me in, no joke, 35 years. I live in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, and I was driving home from Huntsville, Alabama. So as far as Alabama goes, it's a pretty cosmopolitan city. It's a larger city, but where I live in Muscle Shoals, it's really in the country. I mean, in the morning I can hear the cows on the farm that's next to me. So when I'm driving home from Huntsville, I go from city with higher speed limits to country, really quiet, desolate country roads, and on some of them the speed limit is lower. Now, I drive this route often. I go to Huntsville at least once a month. I still go to the hairdresser there. It's just 1 hour away. So I was driving home last week from having my hair done, and I'm driving on Route 72. And on that, the speed limit is 65 miles an hour. And when I make this turn off the 72 onto this long country road, I know that the speed limit is 45. I always, and I'm using the word always, I always slow down, watch my speed. And in fact, I set my cruise control to make sure I don't speed because on this particular road, it's so long and just desolate that it makes you feel like the speed limit would be a lot higher than 45. So I'm just being totally honest with you. I totally honest with you. I always slow down, and I just paused because I noticed that you're not seeing my. Let me just fix this. You're not seeing my PowerPoint. Well, you know what? We'll just roll with it this way. It's not going to be on presenter, but that's okay. Let me get these grid lines off. Sorry. Thank you for the grace today. Okay. So anyway, I turn onto this road and I'm like lost in my own thoughts. And this is the crux of what we're talking about today. The term, we hear the term human error a lot. Well, I'm lost in my own thoughts. I'm thinking. Now I'm going 60 miles an hour, and the speed limit on this road is 45 miles an hour. But there's nobody and nothing around. It's just empty fields as far as you can see. So I'm driving, and all of a sudden I see a state on the side of the road, and I naturally, I'm broken from my own thoughts, and I look down at my speedometer and I'm like, oh, I'm speeding. So I slow down and I see him, pull out, and he's behind me, and I know he's just waiting until there's a place where we can pull over. All of a sudden the lights go on and he pulls me over. And so I scrambled to get my license and my registration out, and he comes over to the window. I already had my window down. I had my registration and insurance and my license in hand. And I just immediately said, I know I was speeding. And I said, I swear to you, I drive this road relatively often. I know the speed limit is 45 miles an hour. I had just come off of 72. I was lost in my own thoughts and I just wasn't paying attention. And so he looked at me and said, do you know how fast you were going? And I'm thinking, okay, honesty is the best policy. He knows how fast I was going, and I know how fast I was. So I just looked at him and I said, I was going just under 60 miles an hour because I was. I actually, on my speedometer, I saw I was going 59. So he said, okay. And he started to turn around and walk away. And I said, sir, and he came back and I said, please don't give me a ticket today. And he looked at me and he said, well, when was the last time you got a speeding ticket? And I said, honestly, I think I was 18 years old. And he said, okay, if you don't have any recent speeding tickets, I'll just give you a warning. And I said, okay, thank you. So he came back shortly after that, and I did get an official written warning. And so I was annoyed with myself because I know better. So I generally, as a rule of thumb, I don't speed. I mean, I think it's really important to stay safe on the road. So, but I was thinking to myself, okay, how do I make lemonade out of this lemon? And I thought, well, I make a live out of it because there are a couple of other things that have happened to me where I don't think that it was my fault, but there was some human error involved. And the thing about human error is too often I think that people get blamed for things, but we as asset custodians, as responsible custodians for our equipment, it's up to us to do the best we can to design out or to put systems in place or fix things so that is error proofed as it can be. So the name of this slide is human error designing for reliability. That's the crux of what we're going to talk about today. But I want to give you a few more personal examples. Then we're going to get more technical when it comes to our equipment. Camilo, can you share the presentation? Yes, if you email me, my email, it'll be on the last screen, but it's Nancy Regan at rcmtrainingonline.com. I'll send you a copy. I should have thought of that ahead of time so I could paste it in here. But can you just, someone put in the chat, just make sure you can still see my screen. I know it's not on presenter mode. We're not going to worry about presenter mode today. Just make sure you can let me know if you can see my screen and you can hear. All right. Here's another. So I bought, now these are simple examples. We're going to get to more serious ones. But these are two different cereal boxes. One is blueberry chex, and one is um, frosted cherry. So the boxes, while they are not, I mean, they're not identical, they're somewhat similar. So one day I decided that I don't love the Chex anymore, so I was going to give this box of Chex to a friend, and I started eating Chex with my yogurt. So one day I went to the pantry and I was just busy. I was getting ready for my day. I had to get out of the house. I wanted to have something quick to eat. So I grabbed a box of Chex. Now, this was the box of cereal that I was going to give away. So I actually opened it and poured some of it, put a little bit in my yogurt and took a bite. And I said, "Oh my gosh, I didn't want Chex. I wanted Cheerios." But the point is that they were very similar. So I'm going to come back to that point, but that's a mistake that I made. Another food mistake that I made, and this has to do with yogurt. They don't make this anymore, at least not in the United States, which is annoying because I really loved the lemon meringue Oikos yogurt. Now, if I just were to do this really quickly, if you're to look at it, they are so similar. What happened is I went to the store and I bought 10 of these. They were 10 for a dollar. I bought 10 of these. I got home and I realized that I had bought banana instead of the lemon meringue. But you see how similar they are? So, I mean, if you ask me, Oikos, and if you look really closely at the picture, it's like the bottom picture, the pot of the yogurt, it's the same exact picture, and they just put a different fruit on top. So it was easy for them, but they're just so similar that if you're in a rush, you can very easily mistake them, and that's what I did. And the color of the top was all the same. And anyway, my husband doesn't eat yogurt, and I can't. I'll eat a real banana, but when it comes to banana flavored stuff, it's just very off-putting to me. I don't like it. So that's another one. Now I have another personal example, but it's a little more serious. Can we someone on link please put in the chat if they'll see and hear me? This is more serious. We have two cats, and one of them, his name is Mako. He has um, asthma. And so the veterinarian prescribed him albuterol. And you can see here that the vet prescribed zero point 0.2 milliliters as the dose. So um, the first time that I got this prescription from the pharmacy, this is the syringe that the pharmacy technician gave me at checkout. Now, if you notice here, I'm looking over to the left to make sure it's coming into focus. This is a 10 milliliter syringe. The prescription was for zero point 0.2 milliliters. So zero point 0.2 milliliters on this syringe is is like right here. I mean, this is obviously the wrong syringe to use to dispense this medication because it's so small, you can't possibly get zero point 0.2 in there. What the technician should have given me is a 1 milliliter syringe. And so that way I can easily draw up, I'll look at my face so it'll focus on this. So I can easily draw 2 milliliters of the albuterol. Now, unlike the yogurt and the cereal, this could have been very serious if I wasn't technically minded, even if I'm not technically minded, or even if I am, if I'm not paying attention. Because anyone who isn't technically minded very well might have given their cat 2 milliliters instead of zero point 0.2 milliliters. If I had given Marco this much, he could have died. I mean, too much an albuterol overdose, and that could have stopped his heart. So this was really serious. So even though I am technically minded, I might have just been distracted the same way I was with the Czech cereal and the banana yogurt, and that could have been a very big mistake. So, where did the fault lie? Was the was the technician just really busy and overlooked things? Was the technician at the pharmacy not trained properly? Didn't know better? This is what leads us into the main topic for today and designing for reliability. Because when it comes to human error, in my experience, too often human beings are blamed. And from time to time, it really is a human being's fault. But more often than not, it is because a machine is designed in a particular way that's not user friendly, or we don't train our technicians and operators properly, or we don't give them the proper tools. Like we give them this instead of this. Um, I want to go over a couple of serious examples. This plane crash happened in the year 2000. Emory Worldwide Flight number 71. It was a DC-8, and it lost pitch control that were resulting from the disconnection of the right elevator control panel. It was found out that the boat was improperly secured and inspected, and all three crew members died that day. So it begs the question, what specifically caused it to be improperly secured? Again, we're faced with, did someone just do a poor job, or did we not set someone up for success? Let's look at another example. Midwest Airlines Flight 5481, a Beechcraft 1900. This happened at Charlotte Douglas International Airport in 2003. This airplane crashed shortly after takeoff because of incorrect rigging of the elevator control system. Everyone on board died that day. 21 people died. And then this one, nobody died, but it cost the United States government a lot of money. Human error caused loss of Mars orbiter, November 10th, 1999. This was to be a key part of the exploration of Mars. It was because of a failure to convert English measures of rocket thrust to metric values. So as a result, the spacecraft approached Mars at too low an altitude and crashed into the planet instead of reaching a safe orbit. So oftentimes, because we are human beings, we very often focus on the complex, and sometimes we just don't look at what is right in front of us. Because I'm sure that the engineers working on this project know the difference between, English and metric values. And they were probably busy. They were caught up in the emotion of this exciting project. They probably had dotted all their I's and crossed all their T's when it came to all the complex stuff. And something as simple as not converting values English measures from English values to metric values, caused the loss of the spacecraft. So that's another point is that it's important for us to design out these things. So if you're designing new equipment, that is an excellent place to start. But what about for our legacy equipment? Even with equipment that's 20 and 30 years old, there are plenty of these opportunities for failure that are there. In the context of what we do as a living, they're called latent failures. So it's basically they're just laying in wait to happen, because we don't train someone properly, they operate something wrong, and that causes failure. So one way to combat this is when we do reliability-centered maintenance is an excellent process to help with human error. If you're not familiar with reliability-centered maintenance, it's a process that consists of 7 steps. Now, and we use this process to create a maintenance plan for our equipment, but also to identify other actions, other default strategies that we may do, like we may need to redesign equipment or change an operating procedure, or decide to provide a different tool for our technicians. But one of the steps is step 3, and that is failure modes. That's when we identify what could specifically cause failure. And when we brainstorm failure modes, there are 4 different criteria. Failure modes that have happened before, failure modes have have not happened, but they're a real possibility. Maybe we're already proactively managing them, so they're not happening. Maybe a failure was unlikely to occur, but the consequences are severe, and those failures currently managed by proactive maintenance. Now, if we come back to the topic of today, which is designing for reliability, the question is, how do we identify these areas of vulnerability? It's when we proactively identify failure modes, but it's using the most valuable resource that we have at our disposal. And in our industry, in my experience, the most valuable resource that we have is very often underutilized, and that is our equipment experts. And I just want to pause for another moment. Would you, someone on LinkedIn, just would you put another thing in the chat just to make sure you can still see and hear me, just to make sure all systems are go here. Okay, so back to our equipment experts. The way I would always recommend to do reliability maintenance is with a facilitated working group. So in other words, you've got a facilitator or someone who is very well versed in the principles of RCM. Then you've got your equipment experts around the table. So this is just an example of an RCM working group. This one has 7 experts. Some may have 3, some may have 5. It depends on what you're analyzing. You may not always need someone from production or manufacturing. You may just need your operator, your craft, and your engineer. So it depends, but this is just a representative example. But the value of a facilitated working group approach is that have you have all these different disciplines. And what's valuable about it is that all of these experts have a different perspective about the equipment. They have different experience, they have different knowledge, and because it doesn't matter what the machine is, one person has expertise in one particular area. The operator has a particular area of expertise and doesn't know everything that a maintainer knows. So it's like magic what comes out of a facilitated working group approach. It's like people start to understand each other better. They start to learn about the equipment. So another byproduct of this is, we hear a lot about reliability culture and, how do we foster a good one? This is an excellent way to start fostering a reliability culture because what happens when it comes to our operators and our maintainers, generally speaking? Do they get along? How do they get along? In my experience, this is what I see most of the time. Operators and maintainers butt heads. But when you talk to them, they articulate what they want differently, but it's the same thing. Operators just want their equipment to run smoothly. They want to be able to do their job without the machine breaking down. Maintainers, they want the time to be able to proactively take care of their machines instead of running from fire to fire, running from one unplanned failure to another. So while their perspective is different and they think they want different things from the machine, they actually want the same thing. So the more you do RCM analyses and the more you do facilitated working group approach, the more these people start to get to work together. And what comes out of it is it's just incredible. Now, bringing it back to the topic of the day, which is designing for reliability. One thing I want to make sure that I note about today is this is not a judgmental exercise. It's actually just the opposite. It's actually making sure we, as responsible custodians, are setting our equipment experts up for success. So when we do specifically reliability-centered maintenance, and we use a facilitated working group approach, it's a time for us to look ahead, right? And when we do RCM the right way, we do consider failure modes that have a human element to it. So the same way we would regard a pump fails or a belt wears, we would consider these other areas of vulnerability that we're talking about. I'm just checking the chat here. If you have any questions, please do put it in. And also just give me a um, a comment that says that you can still see and hear me okay. Okay. Um, Another thing is it helps us to focus on error reduction and thereby make systems safer because these are the people who understand where these vulnerabilities are. They understand the system, illustrate the insidious ways a system's defenses can be breached. Okay, so we proactively identify failure modes, right, a failure effect. In other words, what would happen if we didn't fix that issue? We assess consequences. Could we adversely affect operations? Could someone be injured or killed? And then we come up with a way to solve it. Okay, now when we do reliability centered maintenance and we are coming up with failure modes that could have a human element behind it. We approach it with human beings in mind, right? So, for example, there could be design deficiencies, it could be configuration management issues, inadequate knowledge or training, operator action or inaction, it could be a communication issue, it could be an organizational issue, maybe we've got inadequate procedures, our tech manuals might not be up to snuff. Let's look at a few examples of this. Okay, so for example, design deficiencies. Maybe local operation of a valve may be difficult because there's inadequate lighting. Now, how are you going to know that there's inadequate lighting unless you are the operator and you're in that area very often? I mean, I wouldn't know that because I'm not there. I'm not doing it. But our operators, they know. So when you do a facilitated working group approach, these things just naturally start to come. Another thing is that displays or controls may be confusing or not accessible. So maybe the person who designed the display and the control, the displays and the controls, very often because we're thinking as human beings on the complex stuff, it may be great from a technical perspective, but maybe we didn't take into consideration the human being that's going to be operating it. So our operator can bring that to our attention. Sometimes equipment isn't easy to operate. It could be for two different reasons. Maybe there needs to be a modification to the machine, or maybe we just haven't trained our operator properly. So again, using a facilitated working group approach, we ask the people who know the equipment and the operating environment best. They can identify these deficiencies so that we can fix them. In other words, design for reliability. Because, you know, if a machine goes down because a bearing seizes or because it was operated incorrectly, It doesn't really matter. I mean, at the end of the day, the machine's down. So it's up to us to identify proactively those causes that could, make it go down. Okay, configuration management. How about control room drawings and instrument details aren't clearly identified, or don't clearly identify instrument modifications, and that could lead to confusion and delay. Maybe operator training for a main generator is weak, so maybe we need to beef up the training. Communication can be an issue. Maybe the filter crew thinks that the operator changes the filter, and maybe the operator thinks that the filter crew changes the filter. So sometimes there's confusion there where it's not specifically documented because people just think someone else is doing it. Maybe we've got an issue with our organization in general, and maybe there aren't enough operators, so they're stretched, and so maybe they're fatigued, and that could cause them to do something wrong. But it's not because they're bad, it's not because they're inadequate. It may just be because we didn't set them up for success and they're way too. Okay, maybe our procedures need to be modified. Maybe we've left out a step. So maybe when the person who wrote the procedures thought that this step was just intuitive and it didn't need to be there because they have a certain amount of knowledge in their head, but it doesn't match what's in the head or the mind of the operator. So maybe we need to change that and add that. Maybe we've got an electrical schematic that's wrong. And, we may have electricians who've been in the field for 20, 30 years, and they just know it's wrong, and so they know the right thing to do. But what happens when someone new comes along? What if our new hire isn't briefed on that mistake, and he or she is doing the work based upon that incorrect schematic? Okay, so let's just sum it up here. And if you have any questions or any thoughts, put it in the comments. So let's just sum things up. Reliability-centered maintenance is an incredibly powerful error-fighting solution. It can absolutely help you minimize human error and design for the reliability that you need. It can also make systems more error tolerant, um, control the likelihood of error, and limit the severity of consequences resulting from such errors. And that's a good place to end here. I want to make 2 points. The first one is that my mentor, John Mowbray, taught us that the essence of reliability-centered maintenance is managing the consequences of failure. As equipment custodians, we are not in the business of preventing all failures. There are plenty of failures that, whether we consciously do it or not, we let run to failure because they just don't matter. So really, when we proactively identify failure modes, we write failure effects so we can identify how it matters. Could someone be injured or killed? Could we adversely affect operations, breach an environmental standard, regulation, or law? Or maybe it has non-operational consequences. That's what we're doing. We're coming up with solutions to manage those consequences. And the last thing I want to say is that although I have focused on and mentioned reliability-centered maintenance here, in order to capitalize on our most valuable asset, and that is our equipment experts, you don't necessarily have to do reliability-centered maintenance. Um, Whatever improvement method you're using, I highly recommend that you include your equipment experts because they are the people who understand how our equipment operates, how things fail, what happens when they fail, how it matters when they fail. and they are a huge source of information when it comes to formulating solutions to manage those failure modes so that we can get the reliability that we need. So just to sum it all up, designing reliability when it comes to human error, ask the people who know equipment best. Thank you for watching, everyone. And if you're watching this on the replay, thank you for watching. I'll be back next Tuesday at the same time, 9 a.m. Central Time, for another Tea Time with Nancy. So thank you for watching, everyone, and see you next time. Bye bye.